Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Pits of Metal Cast. This year is David and our special guest, Trevor William Church, guitarist, vocalist from Haunt. How's it going, Trevor?
It's going good, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. I know you're in a couple other projects too. What is it? Hysteria, and what's the other one? Beastmaker. Yep. So how do you keep yourself busy, huh?
Oh yeah, man. I'm always working on music and always trying to have my hand into something, even if it's other people's bands that I'm interested in, like helping promote or record, you know, shit like that. Keeps me active and keeps me inspired and keeps me motivated.
Yeah. Then with Haunt, you got the new album, Mind Freeze?
That amongst other things in the works, because I can't be, it's hard for me to like stop writing and like take a look back and anything. I always have to kind of be doing something new and working on new stuff. So I was actually like working on new stuff last night, and some of the shit that you read while like you just get a record out, and everybody has their fucking opinions. And some people think not very many, but some think I put out too much music, and I'm like, would you rather it be inspired music or me just like shelling out an album that I don't care about just because I need to release a record? Like, because I don't really have a very good track record of. I was thinking about this very heavily lately about my goals. And sorry, I'm smoking a joint right now. I'm like trying to get to stay lit. So I keep like going, pausing. My goals. My track record is not very good about keeping bands going for very long, and it's something that I kind of looked at a little bit more deep lately. As I'm getting older, I'm like, man, I didn't really have my own bands. Like, in my 20s, I joined other people's bands. I didn't want to lead a band. I didn't want to be the guy that had to take care of everything.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to just play. You know what I mean? It's very, very low key, which is weird being the front man. And, people that see what I'm doing now, they're saying I'm super prolific and all this stuff. It was just kind of, the time was right for me to emerge as like myself and have my own music, my own lyrics, and everything that I do. But I've never been in a band longer than like 3 years, ever. So my goal with Haunt right now is to try to stay in it for 5 years. The 5-year plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can it be done? I can tell you this right now, if I don't stay inspired and stay writing and stay focused on everything, we won't last 5 years. And there's also the part of me that goes, well, you don't really know where you're going to, what you're going to be feeling. I mean, I've already shown that, like, I have interest in just sitting back, being a producer and bass player in Hysteria, which I really like the idea of, like, kind of not having to be like front and center and just like enjoy myself a little bit more, because there's a lot of shit that comes along with being a singer and guitarist at the same time. You're doing a busy job, you know what I mean? You're like always, your brain is like, it'll be nice just to kind of lay back and like rock out with people and not be glued to the microphone and stuff like that. So I don't know how I feel about the whole idea of like that I'm putting out too much. I'm like, is 12 songs a year too much for people? Because I'm not making my albums long. I'm kind of just writing the songs and putting them out. When I have 8, it's kind of was like a thing where it's like, well, when I have 8 songs written, there's an album. And that's how we've been rolling it out. Like, exactly. There hasn't really been a time for Haunt for me to like have like this back catalog like I had for Beastmaker, because like Beastmaker, I was signed into a contract. I could only do what the record label wanted, yada, yada, yada. I've stepped away from that, and it allows me to kind of work at my own pace. And some people would say, and when I say some people, I say record labels and some music critics that are out there. They'd say, write an album and put your best songs on it. Pick your best ones. Well, to me, every song is kind of like my kid. You know what I mean? It's like a child. It's like my creation. I care about it, even if I hate it. You know what I mean? I put work and time into it, and like, since I just record everything myself, not really caring about like, I've never been a guy that's like, oh, I need to go to a studio to get like the best sound or that. To me, it's like I'm just trying to capture whatever I'm doing in the moment. I don't, some of my favorite records sound bad. They're not amazing, and I don't even care. I never have. I was like, well, song's there, the magic's there, the feel is there, and that's what I'm looking for. So I try to stay true to that. But it's kind of weird. When you put out a record, you're kind of putting yourself out there for display, especially in a time where everything is so immediate. Like 40 years ago, you would have to pick up a magazine. You know what I mean? 20 years ago, you would have to pick up a magazine to even read a review. There wasn't as much stuff out there. So now we have all this stuff, and I get tagged, and it's so hard not to read it. And it's like, I don't really get like, it doesn't like upset me if people don't like what I'm doing, but it upsets me when people think that they know what's best for me. Yeah. It's like, how do you know what's best for me?
Right.
It's like, for me, it's like the creation of the song keeps me inspired to even be in a band. Like, I don't really like look at things so one track, like this is this one album. I'm like, this is just one piece. Mind Freeze is just a period of time where I wrote these songs, and I really like them. I mean, honestly, if I didn't like any of the songs that are on it, I wouldn't have put it out. Do I feel stronger about some songs? Obviously. You know what I mean? Like, some of the songs I feel like I'm like, okay, well, I did an okay job here, but could I have written a better song? Probably. But that song might be somebody's favorite song.
Right.
You know what I mean? Who the fuck are we to say, like, what's going to speak to you? Like, your favorite song might not even be on the list of my favorite songs. But that's just where I kind of had this, after being, like, I don't really like to throw record labels under the bus, but most people know which label Beastmaker was on, and kind of, I've, shared with a lot of people my experience of, like, what it was like being contractually, like, obligated to something and whatnot, and having somebody tell you what how much you can or can't release, or when they want to do it and do it on their time. Oh, trust them, they know what's best, and yada, yada, yada. But again, like, who knows better for your, I feel like you know what's best for you. You're going to really listen to somebody else and tell you, like, hey, this is what's best for you. I'm like, how the fuck do you know what's best for me? Like, let me put out this music. That's what's best for me. This is my therapy. This is my way of speaking how I'm feeling, or, this is my creation. This is how I, get through life. Like, it's like putting a stimulant on your voice. Like, you can't, nope, you can't do it today. Nope. So I've kind of withdrawn myself from that, like, standardized way of, like, having somebody else have control over your stuff. And so, like, Mind Freeze, it really does, like, for me, like, again, like, it speaks the period of time where I was, like, writing kind of in between this phase of, like, we had really decided to call Beastmaker off, like, finally, after, like, 2 years not playing, we're, like, me and Andy, the drummer of Beastmaker, who does a lot of the producing and engineering for all the Haunt stuff with me. I have to have somebody there with me to get me through.
Right.
Being at least, he's like the person I go, is this good enough to put out? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, cool. Because if it passes his test to me, that's all it needs to pass. Because he's the only person that, like, I've really worked with. I trust him really, like, heavily in his opinion, because he's super opinionated. He's a good musician. He records bands. So, like, we always have said, like, we could go down the rabbit hole forever. And that's where we don't, like, one of the things with a guy like me that's, like, constantly trying, writing, and I really love to write music. I would love to finish a song every day if it was possible. You know, it'd make me feel really good. It'd make me feel really happy and productive that I'm doing the only thing that I feel like I'm actually semi-good at, you know? Like, I've always been good at things, but I feel like with music, I'm a little bit better than everything else on that, you know? Like, I'm sure everybody out there has, like, a couple hobbies there. You know, I was a skater, and I was pretty good, man. I was, like, really, actually, like, locally, like, people still, like, recognize me 20 years later at a park. Like, oh, dude, you're a sick skater back in the way back when I was a teacher. And I'm like, whoa, dude. I'm like, you're dad now. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm way older. And I look at that, and at one point in time, that was something I was, like, super serious about. I, like, really wanted to, like, be sponsored and, you know, like, make videos and do all this shit, which I never did. I never got to that point, really. I was good, but not good enough. Music somehow, I've gotten some recognition. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be on the phone right now, and Haunt wouldn't be doing what Haunt is doing right now. You know what I mean? Playing with legendary bands.
Oh yeah, band like Satan. Yeah, that's a big legendary band right there.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, and I've gotten to open up for Angel Witch, and you know, there's just a lot of things like to me that are like, I feel like that Angel Witch show was like a huge like turning point in my my music career, because that was something I've always really. I mean, a lot of people would say that we have a very similar vocal to Angel Witch and stuff, and that's part obviously pretty true. I would definitely say Ozzy is my main influence vocally, but Kevin Hayburn is definitely high up there. So I've got to do a lot of the stuff that I really want to do as far as like goals, like live. I'm like, fuck, I got to open with Angel Witch. Like, they don't come to California. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't think they've ever been here. So that's huge. And Night Demon is a great new band, and they're friends of mine. Jarvis is a fucking killer dude. And so like, even though it's a short tour, we made it like short and sweet. We're hitting an area where like anybody that's within a 2 or 3 hour drive max could come out to the gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we set that up, because I mean, it's obviously hard for bands from Europe to come to America. It's much more expensive than American bands going to Europe, because we don't have to have the same type of work visas and stuff, So anyway, back to Mind Freeze, and just the whole way of releasing stuff. I kind of like, definitely trailed off of some of the things that I was speaking about in Icarus, about, like the song like Light the Beacon. It's just kind of like this honoring the memory of loved ones lost and things of that nature, which are really just close to home to me, because I grew up like an only child. I'm the only child, and I had 3 cousins that were also basically only children. Like 2 of them were for sure, but my cousin Mike, he has a sister, but she's much older, so we were closer in age and much, like, it's not saying that they weren't close, because obviously brother and sister relationship is very close, but I mean, when you're closer in age, you have more things in common, right?
Yeah.
Especially boy, girl. I mean, totally different. Like he taught me how to ollie. You know what I mean? Yep. Anyway, like having all of them depart from this world very early, really speaks a lot about who I am, because those moments of my life are what gave me a voice and gave me something to sing about. My cousin Mike died when I was 19, and that was hard. He taught me guitar, he taught me heavy metal, he taught me skateboarding. And then, like, fast forward 7 years, my cousin Daniel, who I moved to Fresno because of him, where I currently live. I was going to start a band with him. I told him, I was like, hey, I want to do a Black Sabbath band, maybe a thrash metal band. He was more on the Black Sabbath thing, and so was I at the time, because, like, obviously, if people heard Beastmaker, you could hear the early, like, new wave of British heavy metal stuff, like Witchfinder General, Pentagram, St. Vitus. St. Vitus isn't new wave of British heavy metal, but, like, I'm talking, like, that era of time for, kind of doomy metal,
Right. Yeah.
Witchfinder General, I consider kind of, they're kind of linked to new wave of British heavy metal, but I feel they were kind of like that transition band in the 80s of, like, they are kind of a doom metal band in a way. Like, they're definitely slower than faster, in my opinion, and more mid-tempo. They don't really thrash, so I don't know, man. It's like he ended up passing away 2 weeks after I moved here, which is insane. Like, it was very gnarly, and that fucked me up. And then my cousin Brandon, who was, he was like one of those dudes. He wasn't as so into metal and punk as I was. He was more into, like, alternative and indie and, like, folk guitar finger picking.
Yeah.
He was always pushing me as a guitar player. He's like, dude, like, show me what you're working on and things as a teenager. I mean, that's, like, weird because, like, most teens, I don't know how serious about stuff they were, but we were a pretty, like, very musical family. So I went from having this incredible musical family and everything to everybody being gone, and I'm the only one left here. So there's that like lingering presence of wanting to, like, write about stuff like that, like a song like Light the Beacon, like honoring the memory of people lost. And even Burst into Flame is about that. So about just overcoming obstacles that are just hard, but you have to just harden yourself so you can move to that next phase, because you don't want to, like, dwell into negative stuff. You need to keep your life happy and positive and stay away from the negative. I think even you could agree with me that you would rather have more positive people in your life than negative people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So wouldn't you rather, like, turn a bad memory into something, at least positive, or something that somebody else can reflect on? And that's, like, was kind of a huge goal for Haunt, was to kind of be able to speak that. Beastmaker was more about, like, I was learning how to write lyrics at the time. And you gotta mind you, this is, like, the first band that Beastmaker is the first band that I really ever wrote lyrics for. Before, I just was, like, a guitar player or bass player and didn't really, like, I would help, I'd kind of give people direction of, like, songwriting and stuff, but I wasn't really writing lyrics. So I was, I've always been into old movies. My dad's a huge movie buff, and I had some friends that, like, definitely were, like, super movie nerds. I wouldn't really call myself a nerd about it, like some people that I know that they just dive deep. They know everything. I usually look to those people to find stuff. You know what I mean? That's me. I'm like, hey, what are you watching? What's a good, you know what I mean? Like, I want to see something new. And, I've always friended people that had a good insight on things. And I kind of use, like, those, that knowledge that other people passed down to me to help, like, create this atmospheric story that was Beastmaker. And then, fast forward, like, 80 songs later that I wrote for Beastmaker, and I'm, like, starting to realize, like, okay, I'm really figuring out a formula of how to write my lyrics now. I want to say something new. I want to bring something new and something meaningful to the table, which is Luminous Eyes, which is really crazy because, like, I almost didn't put it out, and it was, mainly because I didn't, like, Fresno's a really hard place to have a band, period. It's definitely not it doesn't give your band any cool points or anything. People just kind of look at it as he's passing through on the 99, and there's a bunch of cows or something. That's, like, kind of people's perception of where I live. So I was like, I can't do two bands. And so I had Beastmaker's merch guy, who's Wolfie, just come over and lay some drum tracks. Like, at the time, my drumming was pretty it was okay, but I wasn't super pumped on it, and I was like, man, I need some better drums. And I had him drum on, some tracks, and, I was like, I might release this, and, like, seriously, like, 6 or 7 months came, and I was like, I had this, haunt idea, and it wasn't even supposed to be, like, a spooky thing. It was more of, like, I'm literally, like, haunted by bad memories that I tried to turn into good memories. And that's kind of why I picked that name. It wasn't to be, like, a ghoul thing or anything. It was more like, this kind of title reflects the lyrics that I write. The bad things turn into a good thing, So, I kind of brought some of that over into Mind Freeze, as well as like talking about, political things as well, which is something I started to do in a punk band that I was singing in, a little like during Beastmaker, that just didn't come to fruition. It was too busy. I was working full time. Beastmaker was starting to take off, so I kind of had to put that on the sidelines, but I was writing really political lyrics, and I've gone back to that a lot. And then, also being a dad, like, has put new perspective into certain things, and like the song "Have No Fear" is basically like that song, about just like, just going into life and don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't worry about what people think or say too much. Obviously we're human beings, and we care what other people think sometimes. It's anybody that tells you otherwise isn't being honest with themselves. But we care what other people think, and it's about like you gotta just. And it also is like one of those songs that has my favorite like arpeggio riff. Like it's I really like the intro of the song, the keys, bringing the keyboard element to it, and that's something I've been longing to do for years. I used to write keyboard parts to a lot of stuff. Like years ago, I was writing a lot of like keyboards into my punk songs that never saw the light of day, and I'm talking like back in like the 90s. So it was like it's always been there, but I've never been able to like put it. I wasn't brave, because it's a weird thing, because it could really throw some people off.
Now, were you self-taught on guitar, or did you take any lessons?
On guitar?
Yeah.
I might have taken 1 or 2 lessons in my entire life. Mainly self-taught. Obviously, like, I had cousins that, like, they knew some stuff and they showed it to me, but I kind of just took it onto my own. And I used to, like, just learn songs by ear. And that's how I kind of, like, learn things, until it got too technical, when I started really wanting to learn, like, Megadeth songs and stuff that were a little bit ahead of my skill level. I had to, like, resort to some tabs and stuff. The few lessons I took, I felt like they didn't know me enough to know where I was at skill level. They would be like, show me what you know of this. And you either knew it or you don't, and they send you home with this crappy shit that I just wasn't really looking for. I wanted to be a songwriter. Like, I was, like, looking for, like, ways to improve my songs and stuff. And I think recording is what actually made me a better songwriter. Being able to suppress record and start engineering my own shit. That made me a million times better.
No,
so I don't know if that really answers your question, but, like, I would say I'm, like, 99.9% self-taught.
Now, how about the...
I do watch... I watch videos and stuff.
Oh, you watch...
I mean, it's the Hot Licks videos.
Licks
videos and stuff. But I wouldn't really call those, like... Those are just quick little guitar tips.
Right.
That's not going and, like, having this disciplined... Like, lessons, I feel like a disciplined thing that every week you're going to do a lesson. Every other week you're going to do a lesson. I don't have any discipline.
Now, how about the If Icarus Could Fly album? Can you talk a little bit about that one?
Oh, yeah, what do you want to know about it?
Like, that is all basically the same thing, like life situations turning them into
Uh,
positive?
the, the whole, like, that is my whole, like, mission statement of Haunt would be to, like, try to have a different voice than other metal bands, to be honest with you. I strive to be lyrically way more different than, like, 90% of the bands, and you probably could agree if you read my lyrics and then go read somebody else's, there's going to be significant differences. It's probably something more that hits home to people, and it's more emotional. Like, my lyrics would probably go better in an emo band than a metal band in a lot of areas. And but that's just because I'm trying to speak from the heart, and,
Right.
and it's with Icarus, even using some mythology in there, like, it was kind of like, it kind of got interpreted weird, because, like, they're like, dude, Icarus did fly. I'm like, yes, I know that, but I was like, but he really didn't, because he died. I'm talking, like, my thing is, like, are the what ifs of life. Like, what if he just decided not to just go close to the sun and just flew on? That was kind of my point. Maybe it just didn't get, I mean, my perception of something is not going to be somebody else's. I think a lot of people understood it, and then some people took it very literal. That, because a lot of times things are that way. But I was trying to speak metaphorically in a way that was like what I was feeling when I wrote it. And it's weird because, like, when I pick an album title, it's usually just a song from the album. I've always done that because I don't write concept records or anything. It's kind of, I just write, again, like, I'm just writing what I'm feeling at that moment in time. And so I just kind of use that, like, to get the artwork or something to be real cohesive and, like, have a look, and then have, like, a centerpiece. It's like, okay, here's the thing that you're going to stare at and you're going to remember with this certain record, okay? Like, with Luminous Eyes, it's the eyes, for sure. Like, the artwork for the other songs wouldn't have been as strong. And the same thing with Burst in a Flame. I was originally going to call it Reflectors. I wanted this, like, mirror thing to happen, and we went through, like, 5 album covers, and even used different artists, and it didn't work out, and the cover ended up being completely something different than I was looking for, but it was the back of the record, and kind of the same thing. I kind of just bled that over into Icarus as far as the art. I was like, I really couldn't get any art that really fit, and the Icarus thing kind of, like, we also kind of like kind of did like a Sad Wings of Destiny, which is one of my favorite records, heavy metal records of all time, kind of used that visual, you know what I mean? It was like, yeah. It's like, you can pay some homage to a great metal record that influenced us all, and it also connects this album. It gives it some cohesion for me to, like, put in front of people's eyes. And that record also was a step in the new direction of John being more the lead guitar player and me not being the lead guitar player. I still do a lot of lead stuff and we do a lot of shred, but after playing live, for the last couple of years, I was finding it harder for me to, like, really just do all the stuff I was doing, and I wanted to lay back a little bit. And he ended up being just a tremendously great lead player over my music, which is, like, the most collaborative that I actually get is, like, me and John, because the songs are all pre-written, and I already have them demoed before we even play them at practice. And John, really, he comes in, and I feel like he gives, like, he really knows me, and he knows what I'm looking for, and he knows how to deliver that. Not saying that the other guys don't, but like I said, like, when I write a song, I write the whole thing. I don't just write a piece and go, okay, here's this riff, let's work on it. I write a full piece. I compose the whole thing. You know what I mean? A lot of people do that. It's not that bizarre, but anyway, so, like, it's weird. I had that almost written as soon as I was done with Burst in the Flame. Burst in the Flame was done, and I was just, like, in the songwriting mode, and I just kind of put it all together, and I was like, wow, okay. And luckily I was able to put it out, like, 7-8 months later. It wasn't a big wait, but I did wait until the new year. It was kind of one of those things that was kind of strategic at first because, again, like the industry has these like things that they go by, and I needed to play along for a little bit. I think I could finally, like, I feel more confident now than ever to kind of just really start to do what I feel I need to do for myself, is like for my art and my creative side, which is just put what I got out there. I don't like waiting on it because, like, I'm like, by the time a normal time would come, I'll have like 3 or 4 records written. You know what I mean? All these ideas, and it's like it's really hard to juggle through them. It's like, who, you know, again, like you said, like, how do you know this song wouldn't be somebody else's favorite song? How do you pick what is the best of your song? What does that even mean? I'm still going to display everything that I have. If I was a painter and I was going to do an exhibit, and like all my best paintings are on one wall, and then I have a blank wall on the other side because they weren't up to that standard. What am I going to do with that wall? I'm either going to have to like come up with new shit, or I'm going to go back and like put up some old paintings that, hey, I don't know if they're like my strongest stuff, but it might be somebody else. It might move somebody else. So that's kind of my mentality of like with Haunt in general, is like every song that I write, I'm going to put out, and I kind of have to like move faster because of that. So, I mean, you know, since I get to do interviews and stuff, so it's really good to explain that to like people that might not, you know, follow my live stuff that I do on Facebook or whatever, or when I go live on Instagram, and kind of tune everybody into what I'm up to and stuff, and share my work. That's another great thing about not being like stuck to some a normal contract, is that I can share what I'm doing with everybody. I don't have to be like secretive, and maybe that's good for some people, but again, you know, what works for one person might not work for another, and I'm just one of those rare things, I guess, where it's like I'm not really super concerned about, you know, is this too much? That's not really like something that goes through my mind. I'm like, well, what else am I going to do with myself? I call myself a musician. Like, I should be like, if you called yourself a contractor, but you only went out and you built one house a year, you didn't do a lot of work. You probably, you know, you're going to feel a little bit like, did you improve that much? I feel like you got to build a lot of houses before you build a sick one. You know what I mean? You got to constantly be like flexing your, you know, you got to constantly be working on it. You know, there's that old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember fucking algebra. If you put an algebra problem in front of me right now, I'd be doomed. You know what I mean? Like, I would have no fucking clue, because I didn't care for it when I had to do it, and I definitely didn't use it in my life at all, ever. So, it's gone. So, with songs, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of growth that happens in writing songs. It's like practicing. So, I just have a different outlook, man, on like how important certain things are. Like my albums, again, like I feel like I said, they're just a representation of that part of time in my life that I was feeling that way, and I just so happened to have written enough songs to actually put out a record. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot to absorb. I'm a really talkative guy, as you can tell. I could just go on.
So with the Mind Freeze album, how long was the recording process for that one?
Oh my God, super short. It took like, I had the song. Okay, so a couple things were happening during the time of Mind Freeze that were kind of hindering it from me actually getting it done. I had the songs written, and it almost like it took me literally like 3 weeks to write all of that, every song. So we did go on some tours, and when we tour, we obviously can't work on recordings, but I was playing it for everybody, and like I think when John came in to write everything, like he seriously wrote all the solos in 2 days, which is something that actually takes me a lot longer. When I was writing solos for Burst in a Flame, it took me longer to write the solos than the song. Like seriously, like I think there's like this part of me, I'm like way more like worried about like the technicality, or like, you know, the I don't know, sometimes I'm pushing myself to go, I need to write a harder solo. And John is just not that guy. I don't think he just kind of has this natural feel, and he just nailed it. And Wolfie, like I gave him the music. I told him, I was like, in 2 weeks we're recording, and he did the whole album in 2 days. And that's our drummer.
Right.
And then, so I mean, the whole thing really was short. It wasn't. I think if you had to like put everything into a time span of like working time spent on it, probably I would say a month and a half, which isn't that long. I mean, like that's like how long it would take a custom car company to put a car together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you have a custom car and you take it to the shop, it take them a month and a half to get that fucker done. And that's how long it took us to do it. I didn't really want to put much more into that because I was, again, during the time of me recording and stuff, I'm still like in this like mindset of like, I'm still playing guitar, noodling around and practicing, and I come up with riffs. And then what do I do with the riffs? I record them. And the next thing you know, I'm going back to that riff and I'm you know, filling out the song and putting, you know, getting drums to it, bass to it, lyrics to it, vocals to it, backup vocals to it. And the next thing you know, I have another record. I already have the next record done. I have 8 songs ready to go already, fully done. So I've been kind of like, you know, reading what people have been saying about Mind Freeze and like it might have been too soon and this, and I'm like, yeah, but so it makes me think, what do you think? Do I put out another record this year, or do I wait? And then I have like 3 other records I have to put out.
Well, your mind's always working, getting lyrics, so I would just keep putting out more and more, man.
I mean, wouldn't you rather had all the Metallica albums come out in the 80s than
Yeah, you remember all
Load?
the waiting for Metallica to come out? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's one of those things where I just go, you know, it's like when you got it, you got it. You know, because this creative side, it could could continue on forever, or it could end. And I would like to do the best work I can while I feel very passionately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I plan on putting another record out this year. I'm not even gonna fucking lie. Like, it's ready. Like, we're gonna be actually recording it in the next couple weeks here. We're gonna actually get the drums done. So the drums are gonna be tracked before we go on tour in Europe. When I get home, all my stuff is already done. Like, the way I record now, I have the guitar work is finished. I just have to have Taylor come now, and most of the bass lines are written. Sometimes he comes up with a couple of things here and there that I might have missed, or we kind of throw ideas off each other, like, is this a good bass line, or does it need more? You know, we kind of come up with that in the studio. It's not like we jammed it out. Like, we don't really jam. Like, I'm for those that don't know, I'm like almost 40, and I'm a dad. I'm married. I have a fucking mortgage, and I have like a lot of responsibilities. So like, there's not a lot of time for play. Like I take everything really like seriously when it comes to like practicing. Like when we're here, we're working on becoming better musicians together.
Now,
instead of songwriting, if that makes sense. I mean. Like, maybe that works for other people, but at my age and that where everybody's at, everybody has jobs that they have to go to and things, because, you know, the music industry is in the toilet. It ain't 1990 where fucking indie labels giving you $500,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which could, on a frugal living in Fresno, I mean, for each dude, you don't have to work no more, period. Like, that's the, living in Fresno kind of, the cost of living would be, but we're not in those times, so you have to be, you have to be able to adapt, and part of that is, like, there's way less time being able to spend to do luxury things like jam for, like, hours, and everybody wants that, like, the band that came up, together from a basement kind of thing. I love that. I love that. I do. And I had that with Beastmaker. It was like started like that. We were jamming. We didn't really have any like really focused idea. Haunt was a focused idea before there was even anybody in the band. You feel me? Like, I already had, like, the whole thing planned. I already had the logo. I already had the what I wanted to do. So it just, the conception was not, you know, the glory story, you know? We made it out of the basement type thing, and worked together on it. I mean, does that take away from the luster? I don't know. I feel really close to John because he and I were in Beastmaker together, and we had to struggle together to, like, get any recognition in the industry at all. And I feel, like, super close to him. And it probably shows live. We lean on each other hard. We're good. We're you know, to have that dynamic guitar work that we do together, you have to be best of friends, basically family, you know? And it's kind of tight, though, now that I have, like, a full working live lineup. It's definitely changed some of the dynamic of the band, especially my writing, because I know everybody's strong suit, and I try to write to it a little bit more, you know? Yeah. It definitely, like, you know, where there was limitations, if I feel like the drumming is, like, beyond that limitation, I could remove it. You know, because some bands, you might have a drummer that's limited, but he's your best friend. You know what I mean? Are you going to, like, be like, no, man, I don't want to be... Some bands do that, you know, once they find a limited person. Iron Maiden is a prime example of, I guess, Paul Di'Anno was not cutting it for them. He was limited, and they wanted bigger and better, and they did. And was that wrong of them to do that? I don't know. I mean, that's a whole different story, right? Like, yeah. Music ethics. Are there a lot of ethics in music? I would ask Ozzy Osbourne. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the shit he's done to the guys in his band. Namely, one of my biggest influences, Jakey Lee. And I'm still a huge Ozzy fan. And I look past it. He didn't even give him songwriter credit. So, I mean, ethics in music is a whole other conversation that I think one day, you know, maybe we'll dive into that a lot more, and I could give some perspectives of what I think of, you know, ethics of certain things, the industry ethics too. I mean, there are people that still try to convince me that I need a manager. And I'm like, what's the manager going to do? And then they write me back. They're like, better agent, better offers, better tours. I'm like, what if I don't care about that? What if what I wanted a manager is somebody to, like, hold me up when I'm feeling down and, like, kind of take some of the weight off my shoulders? Why does everything have to be, like, get bigger, get better, right? Like, does that make any sense to you, or am I just, like,
yeah,
stoned?
Yeah, you don't need a manager. You guys are going to be on an awesome tour in April with Satan, Night Demon, and you guys in Bewitcher. That's an awesome tour, man.
And that was all done through friendship that I created through music by not being a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like, putting myself out there, introducing myself to people, and really, like, you know, being a friend more than just some, like, oh yeah, it's Trevor from Haunt, blah, 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 or Beastmaker. Like, there's people that, you know, they can say they're, like, my homies. Like, that's, like, pretty good, for example, because I've become really good friends with Jarvis over the years, and a lot of people probably seen what, you know, any readers of Decibel magazine, the piece they did on us, they definitely asked Jarvis some questions about me and things, and, you know, like, that was all, you know, like, I met him I just met him through a show. He was there, and I went and introduced myself, and that was it. There's certain friendships that just happen, and that was one that, you know, we both we're very passionate people, and when, you know, like, things happen when that happens, and we get to do this awesome tour. I'm really good friends with Andy from Bewitcher. He was coming to my Beastmaker shows when Beastmaker was, like, barely getting started. He's like, hey, I have this band Bewitcher. Lo and behold, they're on the same label as Haunt. And here, you know, he ended up doing merch for Toxic Holocaust on the Municipal Waste tour that we did with them. And we became even better friends because I saw him every day. So, I mean, there's cool shit that could happen without managers.
Yeah.
Jarvis is kind of a manager, though. He manages bands. I shouldn't even say kind of. He is a manager.